Good morning, Buffaloes fans. Welcome to Ep.5, Season 2 of the official Pilot Mound Hockey Academy podcast, the Buffaloes podcast, here on gshow.ca on G-Show Productions, brought to you by Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. Be sure to check out their website at cancentralsportscards.com. Brought to you by Make Cannon Fasteners and Tools. Be sure to visit their store locations in Brandon and Winnipeg today. It's your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. By Goaltenders, Gordy Tumilson's brand, your goalie's personal video review. Sure to check out their website at gordytumilsongoalies.ca for more information on what they do, as well as Terrico, serving Manitoba producers in the agricultural industry for over 80 years. To find out why they've been so trusted, check out terrico.ca. Three guests in total joining today's episode. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got two players joining the show, which finally haven't had some player guests in a few episodes. We'll get to who those are later on. I mean, you already saw them if you saw the opening promo screen to this episode. But Gordy Tumilson, as always, joining me first up this time on this edition of the Buffaloes podcast. I had a chance to talk to Gordy about the past weekend of games for three of the four teams that were in action in the academy, as well as what's to come for all three of these teams that we talk about today in Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, the podcast, the Buffaloes podcast, Ep.5, Season 2, here on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca. Without further ado, let's get into it. Tumilson joining this edition of the Buffaloes podcast, Ep.5 in Season 2 now here, Gordy, as we roll along. Three out of the four teams were in action this past weekend in the academy. We'll start off with the U15s. 1-2 on the weekend, starting off with a crazy game on Friday night, winning 8-7 against OHA Edmonton. Gordy, for this team, their past weekend, the assessment down from their opening weekend.
Yeah, the 8-7 game was unbelievable. It was just back and forth the whole game. I mean, it's like who's going to score the next touchdown or field goal and when? But we managed to pull it out. Those kids were just as resilient as heck. And this particular weekend is probably their toughest weekend of the year. They're playing the absolute 1, 2, and 3 teams in the league, and so this game here was a nice one to get a good win, to score some goals and kind of get a little bit positive going into the next two games. But yeah, it was a back and forth thriller, and Cole Landerville, our one of our hopefully drafted guys who come this spring, and he got 5 points in this game. I didn't realize that. And so that was kind of a big deal. And he scored the winner in overtime about 2 minutes in. So way to go, our guys. It was fun. And the other two games weren't as good for us. We got beat fairly handily by the other two teams, Edge and Nax. However, that being said, those experiences are great, and we learn from them, and we know how high the bar is set by this on this particular weekend, and that sort of helps us carry us through the rest of the year. The coaches then, of course, can go back and say, "Well, you're not as good as you think you are." If the kids are kind of giving them a tough time during practice during the season, you got to remember that past weekend when you sort of got skunked a couple of times. Well, that's okay. It's a good reference point for players to realize they're still not the best group, and they got to work really hard to catch up.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there's plenty of talent on this U15 team, no doubt about it this year. Speaking of, had a chance to talk to Maddox and Cole, we just spoke about in this episode a bit earlier on. If you missed it in the show, for the viewers out there, be sure to rewind back, as you can do that at any point, live or not live here on YouTube. But yeah, I mean, for this team, obviously, ending off playing against really good competition and the results nowhere in their favor. But in saying that, in playing these good teams, feel like there's always, no matter what the score is or what it becomes, that you can use those games against those good teams to get better in terms of going up against that competition. Do you feel like that could be the case for this U15 team? The more they play against these teams, not looking at the score, but looking at those little things to improve on moving forward.
Oh yeah, I mean, a good hockey player is kind of watching, if not purposely, subliminally, you're watching the game, and you're watching a guy who's playing the same position you are. He's on the other team, and you're going, "Oh my, well, that's pretty good the way he did that. I'm going to try that in practice, or something kicks in, and so if you're not playing with those guys, which is a bonus, then playing against them is the next best thing. And that's actually one of the selling features we have at Pilot Mound. We're always selling the competition because competition is really good. And literally, I said to Gavin Hildebrand the other day, Gavin, you're going to be playing bunch of those guys in junior hockey. You get to the Western Hockey League, there you are. You're going to be playing half of these, some of these guys on all these teams. So get used to who they, knowing who they are, what they do, what kind of point guy, where they shoot the puck, because those are going to be your competition somewhere down the road. Yeah, so it's a good thing to play against good players. It really is.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like, you know what, no matter what, like I said, the score may be, there's always things you can come to learn from it in terms of games like that, things you could do better. And just watching the other team looking at, wow, that's something maybe I want to strive for and to add into my game, a type of skill or something like that, that the opposition may display. But as for the U15s, they'll be playing a game coming up this weekend on Sunday, the only one of the weekend for them coming up here on Thanksgiving weekend in Canada against Rink Hockey Academy. Last time out against this team, it was a 5-4 victory in favor of the Buffs. The Rink obviously coming into this one in revenge. What's going to be the key here for the Buffaloes to withstand that in front of their home crowd for the first time this week?
uh, Batten down the hatches. Those kids from the lake will be coming out flying. They were a little disappointed. They lost the hockey game. Yuki Kito, our goalie, had an exceptional game. He played really well. I think the shots were like 60-40 in the game, which is a pretty good game. I mean, a lot of shots on goal. There's not much defense in minor hockey. I find there's a lot more shooting and give play. Everybody wants to be fancy and shoot the puck. They don't care about blocking shots and helping out. But anyway, at the end of the day, it will be a fast game. It will be exciting, and it'll be a good test for our team again. And will be a good test for the rink guys. They were a little cocky when we went into Winnipeg, and we hadn't beaten them, I don't know, for a year or two. And much like the Blue Bombers hadn't beaten Hamilton for a while in football, and all of a sudden, boom, we just kicked their butts. So that's what's happened for us the last time. So we're gonna try and do the same thing again. But it'll be a good game one way or the other.
I like the Blue Bombers reference here, Gordy. Of course, that team extremely hot right now. This Buffaloes team looking to continue their success early in the season here against RHA to get win number 2 against them potentially. Coming up on Sunday night in Pilot Mound, Manitoba at Blackjack Stewart Arena. The U18 female prep Buffaloes, Gordy, had a couple of games this past weekend, losing the first one, but then closely losing the second one. Improvement from throughout the weekend from this team against two very good opponents. Take me through this past weekend for the U18 prep female Buffs.
Yeah, again, this is kind of like our weekend to find out where we stand with the top elite teams, and we had a one goal loss, and another game where we lost by a few. But at the end of the day, good games again, greater experience for us. I was a little disappointed over the weekend. We played really, really well against North Shore coming out the weekend prior, our last game, the last two periods. I thought we didn't have the same jump for some reason in either of the two games, and maybe it's because the other teams were better, and that can be the case. But I was surprised that we didn't have quite the same jump. I know that our goalkeeping was okay on Saturday and really, really strong on Sunday. So um, uh, we didn't lose the game because of our goalies, of course, which are where my heart lies in terms of the players. But but they were good games and lots of shots and we've got to be better this weekend when we play some games. But nonetheless, They were good entertaining games for our fans, and again, learning experiences for our players.
Yeah, and as a coach, I feel like one of those things you always want to see from your team is coming out with that good jump. You think, this early season weekend that they just had is a reminder that every game is a new game and you got to continue to follow along with your process and going along with that process it is those little things that make a big difference. Like, starting off quicker or coming out with more energy.
Yeah, that's important. And I don't know that we all realize this, but typically the kids that we've got now are used to playing 1 or 2 games a week. They might play Tuesday night somewhere at home, and then they play back at home in Double A or Triple A, whatever they're playing. Now they're playing 3 and 4 games on a weekend, or they play in a weekend. They're traveling a million miles to get from one place to another. The girls didn't get home till Monday last weekend. So they lost a day there. They're doing their schoolwork on the bus and in hotels, and now they're home. They got to catch up with rest a little bit. They got to catch up with school. They got to catch up with. Then it's pumpkin day on the weekend. They got to carve pumpkins, and there's all kinds of neat things happening. But we don't realize sometimes that they're not used to playing 3 and 2 and 3 and 4 games on a weekend at one shot. And so, the learning to get yourself ready part of it is kind of unique, and it's all part of the deal. And so it's the same as in pro hockey. If you're playing the NHL, you're playing 82 games. Well, the guys in junior play 60.
Yeah.
Well, okay, you're playing 60, that's fine, or 70, but if you're playing minor hockey, you're playing 40, maybe 30. And so there's just not as many games. You don't have to have the emotion. Well, now you need emotion. You need emotion more times during the week than you're used to. So that's something you learn to how to drive yourself in those kinds of situations. And that's why that's why we play those games. They learn to do that, and then they're better when they go to college and those kinds of things.
Yeah, and I think that really it's something that I've come to learn growing up and seeing what truly separates the greats from, the good players in the sports is being driven by that process in terms of, getting your body right in terms of what you eat before games, preparation being so key. And I feel like, yeah, it's a lot to get used to. You're coming down here, you're right, you're playing 3 games in a weekend. This team played 4 games in a weekend, a few weeks ago at the Portage, or the Central
Yeah.
Plains Capital Showcase in Portage. And yeah, I mean, I could imagine losing today is tough, especially when this team has only 8 returning players, a lot of new ones on it, and you got to deal with the school and getting ready for games and playing the games. So
Mhm.
getting used to that process as the season goes along, I'm sure it'll happen for all of these girls, or most of them at the very least, as we're only in the early parts of October, not even at Canadian Thanksgiving, as I'm not sure if the Americans are aware that that may be watching, but yeah, our holiday way before yours. So kind of jealous they get to watch football all day on their holiday. But
Hmm.
moving away from that, Gordy, I mean, this team coming up, moving forward for this upcoming weekend, just taking a look at the schedule here. We'll be going up against St. Mary's Academy at the Hockey for All Center on Monday. No games played on Saturday, Sunday, or Friday. Bit of a break for this team. You feel like that could play into their advantage, given what we were talking about before?
Sure. Yeah. They get a bit of a rest, and they're going to play St. Mary's, which is good for them. And be a first for them this year. We usually play them twice. I think we got a couple of game or two in the new year. And so, yeah, this is always a good experience for both teams. And usually they're pretty close games. They are. So we're looking forward to that, and just having the one game. So the girls shouldn't have an excuse for not being ready, not being prepared, not being excited to play another hockey game. And we're looking forward to that game. Maybe get over a chance to get over and watch that one live. I don't get to do that very much anymore, other than when they come to Winnipeg. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, well, of course, you are residing in Winnipeg, and this game will be in Winnipeg 12 p.m. on Thanksgiving Monday on October 13th. at the Hockey for All Center. St. Mary's
I,
Academy going up against the U18 Prep Buffaloes. We're going to take a quick break here, Gordy. We'll be back to end things off with talking about the U18 male Buffaloes here on the network. Welcome back, everybody. The 13th is, of course, the Sunday, not the Monday. I'm getting ahead of myself here, Gordy. Good reminder to stay in the present here. We continue to stay in the present, talking about, I guess, going back in the past and looking to the future, but presently talking about, what's gone down for this team here on Ep.5, Season 2, with the man himself, Gordy Tummelson. Gordy, we'll talk about the U18 male Prep Buffaloes now, as they were the other team that we haven't talked about that was in action this past weekend, going up against teams like RHA, also going up against the St. Paul's Crusaders and coming away with a huge victory there at Blackjack Stewart Arena. Take me through their weekend, Gordy. Positive vibes around this team?
yeah, the RHA games, it was a typical tilt in Winnipeg on a Wednesday, and it was a good game. And again, we learned some things, and I know our goalies were excited to play in a tough game, and we were able to go over some good goals against and some not so good goals against, and that's a lot of fun. We learn lots from those, by the way. Do video, the folks out there maybe not know this, but we do a lot of video review with not just the goalkeepers. I do that with the goalies. That's part of my task from a long distance coach. And we so we're going over those things all the time. We have a goalie meeting every Tuesday evening, and we use one of our goals against that particular game, and we're going to use this particular rink game with Barrett Hayes in goal. He was able to look at his goals against. We talk about how they end up in the net, what goes on besides what the goalie does, what the defensemen are doing, what the forecheckers, the back checkers are doing, what the other team is doing. So the kids get a full idea of how the game is really played. Because typically, I think they focus on themselves so much, they don't really actually see the whole game and go, "Oh, I didn't realize that." And and so we and sometimes it puts the blame, if you want to put blame on a goal again, puts it on them. Sometimes it takes it off of them and say, well, that shouldn't happen, because if the defenseman did this or that, you'd be off fine. So there's a lot to learn when we do this, and that was one of the games, the RHA game. And then we had a really good game against St. Paul's. Our guys played really well, and I'm not sure St. Paul's is quite the team that they normally have. It didn't look quite as good. I coach in the Winnipeg high school program too, and against them quite often. And they didn't look quite the same or quite as good as normal. Now, maybe it's just early in the season for them too. So
Right.
I'll just go with that and see what happens next time.
Now, they have two teams. Was that the A team or the B team?
I'm not sure. It might have been the B team, and it quite possibly could have been the B team, and would have been nice to play the A team, because it would have been a better game as it turns out. But whichever team we played,
Right.
we
Yeah.
were far and away better, and I wondered about that. So thank you for that. I'm not sure.
No, for sure. Just wondering because, yeah, I know that their A team won the Platinum Promotions Championship last season, but no matter what, I mean, it's always a great day when you can beat St. Paul's, no doubt about it. You know that,
Yeah,
Gordy. Everyone that hasn't gone to St. Paul's knows that
yeah,
here,
yeah.
Winnipeg at least. But yeah, a lot of confidence, I'm sure, from that 8-1 victory. I guess take us through how things ended up going so well for this Buffaloes team. Were they just on their game from the start? Best game of the season so far?
Yeah, it might be the best game they played, but at the other again, we were forechecked really well. I mean, I think the coaching has made a huge difference at the beginning of this year. Anthony and Tyler have both done a great job of getting the kids ready for games. The kids have bought and particularly Anthony, because Anthony's an ex NHL guy. I mean,
Right.
Buffalo drafts pick, and so why wouldn't you follow his guidance and his lead? He's made it to this big show, and so follow his way, and you've got a good chance yourself. So yeah, they've just played really well. It was a good team, and maybe the other team wasn't quite as ready. So and Barrett, we had Aiden Trapp in goal, our Tennessee guy, in goal, and Aiden played really solid in goal. Didn't give him anything. they had some chances. He took it away, and so it probably made the score a little bit sort of out there for us versus a typical game. He was really good in goal.
Yeah, and of course, those two goaltenders, Aiden Trapp and Tate Sanchez, both coming from the States. And I wonder if they're going to get some time to go home this weekend. Of course, as the U18s won't be in action this upcoming weekend. They'll be back in action on the 18th coming up against the Prairie Hockey Academy, Notre Dame Hockey Academy in a doubleheader as well. Notre Dame always seems like it's competitive games between whoever they play from Pilot Mound. Prairie, there's been victories, big ones from, the U17 teams in the past, of course. These are the U18s, though. A lot of preparation time ahead for those games, but what to expect, I guess, coming up against that competition starting on the 18th.
Yeah, I mean that those games are always good. I mean, those are league games. Those are teams that are sort of in the same competitive realm that we are. Yeah, we've had to move up into that realm, and this team has done that. Finally, after the third year, our brand new franchise team has moved up into another notch. And again, I give the coaches, our recruiting team did a better job overall. So we've got better players, better coaches, and so we're certainly more competitive, and looking forward to playing these guys for the first time, so that we can see just where we need to be better at when we get. And again, all these coaches these games are helping us move towards our playoffs, and whatever playoff stream we end up in. And so we'd like to beat these guys occasionally, and be competitive, so that we get to play good teams in the playoffs.
Well, the improvements continue in Pilot Mound as their U18 team getting upgraded to that next level this season in the CSSHL landscape. Gordy, we're going to talk about the U17s next week, not the U18s, since they'll have a weekend off. As a lot more Pilot Mound Hockey Academy news to come next week with myself and yourself here on the Buffaloes podcast. Thanks for coming on, and as always, have a great weekend ahead, and happy Thanksgiving to yourself, Gordy.
Happy Thanksgiving to you and all of our viewers. Have a great weekend. Bye now.
And Gordy Tummelson joining this edition of the Buffaloes podcast to talk about the teams that were in action for Pilot Mound and some of their upcoming games, too. We're going to be talking about the U17s coming up next week on that edition of the Buffaloes podcast, but got some news to report. Student Athlete of the Month awards have been given out. They've been announced on Pilot Mound Hockey Academy's social media. Congratulations to Yuki Kito, Athlete of the Month for Male U15 Prep. Aaliyah Drummond on winning Leadership of the Month for Female U18 Prep. James Berry on winning Academic of the Month for Male U18 Prep. And Chadrick Schulz winning Student of the Month for Male U17. Here's a picture of the four of them holding those Pilot Mound water bottles that they got awarded to themselves based off of winning these honors. And speaking of Yuki Kito, well, it didn't just stop with Pilot Mound for his recognition this month, also being recognized by the Canadian Sports School Hockey League as Student Athlete of the Month for U15 Prep. So congratulations to you, Yuki, on this great achievement. And a lot has been going on around Pilot Mound behind the scenes, when teams have the days off. And this past Sunday, the U18 female prep Buffaloes were back at Pilot Mound along with the other teams that weren't in action to, do some pumpkin carving, get into the Halloween festivities. And pretty cool there, seeing them coloring or painting some pumpkins. I've never actually seen that personally. So getting creative over there, Pilot Mound, Manitoba in the dorms, getting to paint some pumpkins. The U18 female prep team, as well as the I believe that was the U17 male prep, since they had no game action this past weekend. As for them, they'll be back into action coming up soon. We'll have news on how their games went coming up next week. But for Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, their U15 Prep Buffaloes team, they started off their regular season this past weekend and, continued their regular season play this past weekend. And it started off with a huge 8-7 overtime win, 5 point night from Cole Landerville in the victory. And speaking of Cole, him and his teammate Maddox Ramage will be joining me next year on this edition of the Buffaloes podcast, Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy's official podcast here on G Show Productions on gshow.ca. Cole Landerville and Maddox Ramage, two studs for the U15s, joining me next. And it's the two superstars, I guess, two of Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy's U15 Prep Buffaloes top players in Cole Landerville and Maddox Ramage joining this edition of the show. You boys just got done with playing down in Wilcox, Saskatchewan this past weekend, playing against teams like Okanagan Hockey Academy, Edmonton, Northern Alberta Extreme, as well as the Edge School. Talk about how this past weekend went opening up regular season play in the CSSHL.
Uh, First game went really well. Everybody played well, and obviously we got to win an OT, which is nice. And then the next two games are definitely tougher. Playing Nax and Edge, who are one of probably the better teams in our league, which we gave a fight, but overall it didn't come out as how we'd like. And when we play them again, it'll definitely be a different result.
Yeah, and same thing as Cole said, the OHA game was a pretty fun one, going to OT and winning. Tough 2 games against Nax and Edge, but we'll battle back.
Oh, for sure. It's an early season type of game, right? Where you boys are just starting off your regular season, and like you mentioned, two quality opponents you end up going against, and of course, getting the shorter end of the stick on the losing end. But talk about that game against OHA more. I guess how fired up it made this team, knowing that you could compete with a team that has been good in the past before.
Yeah, it was a fun game. Boys were all pretty hyped. The Yeah, we played solid game altogether. There was a lot of offense. I think it was like 14, 13 goals or something like that, so that's always good.
Yeah, just to add on too, like everybody played well. I feel like everything was clicking in the D zone. Breakout was working. Getting in their zone two, setting up, and then obviously we were good off the rushes. I'd say where we scored probably 6 of our 8 goals, so that helps too. Also, Young Guns too stepped up that game, and our goalie too played unreal that game too to keep us in it.
Yeah, of course, this team led by Yuki Kito and Gavin Hildebrand in the pipes this season. But speaking of goals, Maddox, you got 6 of them to start off this year in 5 games played, leading this Buffaloes team in points. This is your second year with the Academy, of course, a year under your belt of playing against this competition, so some familiarity coming into year two. How do you feel like year one is serving you at this point in this really great start for you at the start of the year?
Yeah, I mean, it's good to start off like that, getting into a groove, kind of. Just hoping I can keep that groove for the rest of the season.
How would you describe yourself as a player? Obviously, you got a bit of size to you. You can put the puck in the net. Would you call yourself a power forward, or how would you describe yourself as a player?
Yeah, I feel like I'd call myself a power forward. I like to, use my body. I think I could bury the puck pretty well.
Yeah, and we saw that on display at times last season as well as this year to start things off. For yourself, Cole, of course, you played in the academy last season with this team, made some noise, some headlines. Saw you posted a few times with some highlight reel goals you scored. You're a point per game to start off this year, 3 goals in 3 games played. Talk about what it's been like for you this start of the season, not being in the lineup for every single game, but just getting your feet under you in your second season.
Oh yeah, it was a pretty rough start for me. Played one game, kind of my first game, got it going a bit, and then got hurt. Obviously the rest of the weekend, so I didn't really play at all for the next 3 games, and then I was back for our first regular season game against RHA Winnipeg, and that game I started to get my legs going and started to get goals and kind of do what I usually do and started to play how I play.
Well, that's great to hear. And I mean, it's always tough going through injury. We're not going to talk about specifically what the injury is, but how has the process been, I guess, recovering and getting back into the lineup shortly after?
It was really good. We got a really good trainer in Anthony downstairs that helps with us and helps, I guess, recover it quickly. And he knows a lot of what he's talking about. So I just mainly listened to him and took his advice. And then also our coach Colin and Brad gave me advice too and helped me with wrapping it and kind of just getting ready for the next games.
Yeah, it's great to hear that. Of course, the academy, the staff, the coaches, and the trainers taking things like an injury that you suffered seriously and making you get back to or helping you get back to as close to 100% as possible. But like you talked about, getting your feet under yourself a bit more during that RHA Winnipeg game. There's been times this season where you've been in the lineup and you haven't exactly put up the points, but you've been helping other players get to those or pass to those players that get to those spots to make yourself an asset that way. Can you describe your overall game, how you feel that it could potentially change from year one to year two as you becoming a more all-around player?
I'd say this year I have more size on me, so it helps with puck battles and stuff, especially in the D zone. I take pride in like being in the D zone and helping out in the D zone and being on the PK. And not that I like being in D zone, but when I'm there, I'm not afraid to get in the corners and help out my team. And then offensively, I like using my speed a lot. I'd say that's probably my biggest thing is my speed and kind of deceptiveness. And I don't have a hard shot, but like sneaky shot, which I'd say is probably my one of my assets.
Right, for sure. And going to be exciting to see that on display all season long for this U15 group. A question for both you and Maddox now, second year in the academy. Uh, had a year to get used to the academy lifestyle last season. It's early so far this season still. We're in early October, but what's the process been like this year, getting back into that academy life?
For me, it's been about the same. Everybody's welcoming here. It's like one big family. So over time, you get pretty used to it, and it kind of feels like home now since I've been here for 2 years. And yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, we got a great group of guys with us here. We all want to get better, so that's always good to have that type of group of guys with us.
Yeah, and of course, some of the boys from this U15 group have moved up to play with the U17 squad. And then, of course, there's some new additions that come on to this year's team, some good returning talent like U2, Gavin Hildebrand back in the pipes, another notable returnee. But what's this year's group been like so far with the new additions and the returning group coming back?
Yeah, I mean, we've all been good. The guys are starting to, feel at home. I think they really like the academy. They like the gym. They like the rink. So yeah, they're all getting settled in.
Uh, yeah, and also to that, everybody here wants to work hard. Everybody's here to win. Everybody came here for a reason, and I think our coaches did a good job too of kind of setting this stage and standard early of how things run here and how we're gonna compete every game. And props to Brad and Colin for doing that because I think that creates a good dressing room culture and everybody 4 games is ready to go. And when the game comes, everybody's going.
Yeah, and it's great to have that culture set from the very top, the coaching staff, and it trickles down to the players, right? Obviously, like you said, this team prepared and ready to go before games. But how would you boys describe how this year's U15 Buffaloes prep team is going to play and has been playing so far as a unit?
So far we've done actually pretty well in league. We're 2-2, which is much better start than last year. Won our first two, and then obviously lost to Nax and Edge. But um, also in preseason, kind of everybody getting going, which I think we went 3-1.
Yes.
So that was a good start too. So overall, we record, which is always good, and everybody's competing every game, which is also really good to see.
Yeah, and to go along with that, we've got quite a bit of wins this season, and obviously everyone likes to win, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, keeps the vibes positive, keeps the vibes high around the team. Always a plus when that's able to, happen, especially early in the year to get some really positive vibes like that. Gotta ask you boys, are you playing on the same line of the coaches split you up this season so far, or what's the story?
And yeah, we're on the same line, which I like. We have really good chemistry. We've been playing together since we were like 8, I think. So that definitely helps. Yeah, just fun playing with Maddox. We know where each other are, and just helps makes the game easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a nice compliment for both of you two to play with each other in terms of how the styles complement each other. Maddox, that natural type of goal scorer, power forward, paired with Cole Landerville, who as plenty skill and playmaking ability and his skill set for sure. This team coming up only one game on the schedule, going to be at home at Blackjack Stewart Arena against the Rink Hockey Academy. Preparation the same as always for this team, or I guess how does it differ early in the season going into a big matchup like this?
Yeah, so it's our home opener against RHA. Last year we struggled against RHA, so I know me, Cole, and Gav would really like to get a win coming in the home opener.
Yeah, we played them once already this year. It was a battle in Winnipeg. Beat them 4-3. So that was a really good feeling to finally beat them after last year. They had a really good team and we weren't so competitive. But yeah, I think we play this Saturday and home opener, like Maddox said. So I think everybody will be ready to go, fired up. Home crowd on our side too, which always helps.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, I mean, that's hype for sure. Getting to play in front of the home crowd for the first time this season. I guess leaving it off with this, at the end of the day, obviously every team wants to win a championship, but is the goal maybe of this U15 team to be the hardest working team on the ice night in and night out? And if you accomplish that, this team's happy?
I'd say some of our kind of goals for the season is one is to always compete. Like no matter what the score is, compete. Work hard. Two would be well, I know last year and I don't think the year before, I think they didn't make playoffs. So this year it'd be nice to make playoffs. I think we have a really good chance. We got a good skilled team and yeah, and then the last goal would probably be just be a good team all around, be known as a good team offensively, defensively, and not just on the rink, but outside of the rink too, be respectful. And I think that's one thing that the coaches really preached to us early is respectful and be leaders. And I think that's what our team is kind of right now.
Yeah, I'd say our goal is to be like never give up because we've had a lot of comeback style wins to start the year, which is always good, coming back when we're down and getting those wins. So yeah, goal would be to never give up and yeah, to go along with Cole said.
Well, right on, fellas. It's been great getting to talk to both of you guys on this Monday, 2 days before this podcast goes live on that Wednesday morning, of course. Thanks for coming on, and best of luck coming up this weekend against RHA and in the season ahead, looking to, improve off of last year from this year.
Yeah. Thank you, Graham.
Yeah, thank you.
And Cole Landerville and Maddox Ramage joining this edition of the Buffaloes podcast, brought to you by Make-Cannon Fasteners and Tools, Can Central Sports Cars and Memorabilia, Goaltenders, and Terrico. For this U15 Prep Buffaloes squad, of course, they started off their regular season back in September, late in September, of course, on the last Friday of the month, on the 27th, where they ended up losing in a close one, or winning in a close one, to Rink Hockey Academy. That is, as we just put up one of our sponsors here. We'll go with goaltenders. But yeah, they started off with a 5-4 win against RHA in Winnipeg on the 27th. And then just looking at October, just as we go through the scores here again, a close 8-7 victory in OT to go 2-0 at the time against OHA Edmonton, but then running into two very elite hockey teams in the Northern Alberta Extreme and Edge School, who both dominated Pilot Mountain on the scoreboard, but a good learning step for this Buffaloes team. Going up against high-end competition, and the scores don't matter as much as the process, right? And how do they follow up on that process and continue to get better this Saturday against RHA Winnipeg at Blackjack Stewart Arena? Well, tune in at 2 p.m. Central Time on Flow Hockey to find out. As for what the standings are looking like right now in U15 prep, just trying to take a look. The CSSHL has been kind of odd this season with the standings. But yeah, Pilot Mountain starts off with a 2-2 record in U15. Just for some context, Northern Alberta Extreme and Edge, both of the top teams in the U15 prep division. As for the U18 prep Buffaloes, they only played one CSSHL game so far in terms of in that loss to RHA Winnipeg last Wednesday. 7-5 the score was, but of course Pilot Mountain faring really well against St. Paul's, winning 8-1 against them. If we take a look at the standings in U18 prep, they don't have them really posted at the U18 spot on the CSSHL website. So we move on to, and it doesn't really matter for Pilot Mountain. They've only played one game so far. In terms of who they'll be playing next, though, just to refresh you guys, they'll be playing against Prairie Hockey Academy and then a back-to-back against Notre Dame. Not this weekend coming up, but the following weekend, as they'll have the week off, as mentioned. As for the U18 prep female Buffaloes, looking at them lastly here. So we just pull it up. And yeah, to start off a season against, well, they did the week before, continuing on their regular season play from this past week. So yeah, that was my confusion. I was looking on the CSSHL website and yeah, had some trouble navigating it and forgot to toggle to the September spot at the time. But yeah, Pilot Mountain started off, of course, with a 5-4 loss in OT to start off their season, and then some close losses as well at the end of their first weekend on the 29th to the North Shore Warriors. But as for October, how it started for the female Buffaloes, we've already talked about it. I mean, losing 8-0 to Edge School, but bouncing back strong and almost beating South Alberta, the South Alberta Hockey Academy, losing to them 3-2 at home this past Saturday. They'll be back in action this Sunday against St. Mary's Academy. And for this Buffalo squad, yeah, I think things are only looking up from here for this team as they continue to get used to playing each other, as this coaching staff continues to, implement their, structure and strategy and all that good stuff, I think. As these girls start to get used to more of the academy lifestyle, too, for the newcomers here, as they only got 8 returning players, things will bode better for this team as the season goes along. We end off with talking about the U17s. We'll give you a preview here coming up of what's to come for the U17 prep Buffaloes as we go into the U17 division. section here on the site, on CSSHL, their official website. But as for Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy Buffalo's U17s, they'll be back in action this Friday against the Rink Hockey Academy, and they won't be playing any CSSHL League action until October 25th against Notre Dame Hockey Academy. All games this month are going to be at home for the Buffaloes. As for their CSSHL play, well, it already started. Before the other teams in the academy too. But Pilot Mountain to start off the year, a 2-2 record a 1-3 record, that is, losing in a close one to St. George's or to Shawnigan Lake School back on the 27th, 5-3. Their biggest win and only win of the year coming against Star Hockey Academy. Of course, if we can take a look at the standings to see where Pilot Mountain ranks heading in to that next matchup coming up this Friday against RHA. Pilot Mountain currently ranking tied with Notre Dame for bottom of the U17 prep division. Of course, this team this season a bit of a different look, but still a lot of good talent on this year's team. Gonna have to find ways to have more sustained success without guys like Carson Carrolls and Benson Hurst not returning this season, but really good players on this year's team. A hardworking group for Rick McConnell's U17s. Their upcoming matchups this month against Notre Dame, those are going to be huge, as they're currently around the same record. And these schools, Notre Dame's been around for way longer, has more history, but both schools, as Gordy Tummelson has said in the past, kind of located in smaller type of academies compared to some of the bigger places from what I've heard. But yeah, as for who's at the top of the U17 prep division right now, it is Rink Hockey Academy Kelowna U17 prep, up 4 points right now on Yale Hockey Academy, who has 16 with a 5-2-1 record. RHA Kelowna's is 7-2. But yeah, lots more to come on the Buffaloes podcast next week. Hoping to finally have Aiden Trapp and Tate Sanchez on the show from the U7 or the U18 prep Buffaloes. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Special thanks to Gordy Tummelson and Cole Landerville and Maddox Ramage for joining me on this week's edition of the Buffaloes podcast. We're going to take a quick little transition here, and I'll be back with some final words. Well, you made it to the end of Episode 5, Season 2 of the Buffaloes podcast. Like I just said, special thanks to Gordy Tummelson, Maddox Ramage, and Cole Landerville for coming on and being the guests in this week's edition of the show. Special thanks to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Terraco, Mid-Canton Fasteners and Tools and Goaltenders for sponsoring another edition of Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy content here on the Buffaloes podcast, and for their continuing support on not only this but everything else we do here on the network. Special thanks to you, the viewer, as well, for tuning into this one. If you enjoyed this podcast, and whether you're a fan of Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, maybe you're a parent or a friend of someone who plays for a Buffaloes team in that program, or you may be a scout, no matter who you may be and you're interested in content like this, be sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future uploads, not only when this podcast comes out, but all of our other content here on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca. Episode 6 of the Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy podcast comes out next week, 8 a.m. on Wednesday morning. It's going to be a lot of fun. We will have the details for that episode before the episode goes out, either on the Monday or on the Tuesday. But until then, everybody, I've been your host, Graham the G Show Forsyth, wishing you a happy Thanksgiving, especially to all the Canadians out there watching. Have a great weekend. Stay safe out there and enjoy, whether it's hockey or maybe you're a football fan. Sports coming your way on what should be a beautiful Thanksgiving weekend here in 2024. Until next Wednesday, though, everybody, we'll see you then. Tyson Unruh with his March of the Buffaloes theme will take us away. So long.